called up Milwaukee and asked for KPJ. You could have called up. You could have called up a lot of teams and asked for a similar guard. Like you need somebody that can play make, not necessarily be a shooter or a bucket getter, but a playmaker. We all know what those guys are. Like you need that. Like they could have called up a lot of teams and said, I don't know, but you know,
what about the Bulls? They
maybe
facilitated
was doing good last year, but I was never high on Karis LeVert like that. So I knew like, nah, it's not gonna work. But
what do you think about Io?
I never really liked his game like that, but I could be biased to it.
Detroit they suck in the half court. They like have no ability to score at all. And Cade Cunningham, you know, bless him, he's having a phenomenal year. He's not the caliber of player to be able to put consistent pressure on a team like offensively, like when it comes to scoring, and he struggles himself. I legit don't know like where their secondary scoring is going to come from. Last year, like I said, it was Malik Beasley and it was Tobias Harris. But I mean, they're relying on like Dennis Jenkins and Karis LeVert to be like their second and thirds, and I'm just like, they don't have consistent ball handling outside of Cade. They don't have consistent.
I said shooting. That when they got rid of Dennis Schroeder last year. When Dennis Schroeder walked,
Dennis can't shoot either. I think that's the problem. Like,
Dennis can get a bucket though.
That secondary scorer thing in Detroit.
Dennis can't shoot though, bro. Like he
can get a bucket.
That's not a good enough option. But they're good. They're still a really good team.
Who can't shoot?
Dennis Schroeder.
I'm not. Yeah, Dennis is not like a guy.
I mean, he's like cool. I know.
Yeah, he can make shots, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's not a knockdown shooter, but that you don't have to be. Sometimes like he's a rhythm player. Like if Dennis get on the rhythm, that nigga liable to give you the same impact as a starting point guard would. Like that's the type of player he is. That's why I think the Cavs getting him and Keon Ellis is gonna help them tremendously in the playoffs because. Both of them guys, not so much Keon, but I like Keon. But Dennis for sure, let's say D. Mitch having a bad game. Let's say James Harden having a bad game. You still got a guy who could come in and get you 20 and 10. Dennis can do that. We've seen him do that before. The Pistons on the other end don't have that. And I've been saying this since the start of the season. I like their team. I love Cade. Their problem is they don't have another guy when K's going to have a bad game. They don't have another guy that can get you the same impact as a starter. I told
them what to do, Drench.
Yeah, they should have been got Michael Porter Jr. They should have got Laurie. They should have got that. But at the end of the day, Jalen Duren
wasn't getting Laurie. Utah's not handing him over to you.
Man, shit, they would have handed that shit over for some picks. They would have handed that shit over for some picks.
Jordan, I've been saying all year. Before the trade deadline, I was like, hey, all these teams that need like another ball handler need to be looking at Dennis Schroeder. The Rockets, in my opinion, should have been trying to get Dennis
didn't understand the shit with the Rockets, bro.
The Minnesota, in my opinion. Now they got Io, so I'm kind of cool with that. But they should have been trying to get Dennis Schroeder. Like all those teams that have like lack ball handling that are playoff contending teams, in my opinion, should have been trying to sign Dennis Schroeder.
I agree, and even Charlotte, like Charlotte getting Kobe White, I think people underestimated like them getting Kobe White.
That was huge.
Obviously, they had Colin Sexton, but he's a better player than Colin Sexton. But to the point is, like, how do you not look at your team, even though you're having success? Like, how do you not see like long term, especially what the Pistons went through in the playoffs? Like long term, how do you not see like you're going to need another guy to initiate? It's quite evident. Like you not only do you need another guy.
Karis LeVert was meant to be that. He's just
not working. But he's not even that though. Like he's not the playmaker.
He was good in Cleveland.
In Atlanta last year, he was doing a lot. And that's the thing. It made sense on paper.
I've never been that high on Karis LeVert though.
Jordan, just to maybe tie this back to previous conversations we have had. Like this is maybe why Detroit couldn't pull this move, and OKC could have. Because when they were in their rebuild, they didn't trade away their stars at the right time and stock up on picks. So they have one shot in the barrel to get this second star. And they weren't comfortable pulling that for an MPJ. And maybe even Lowry wasn't maybe available because you saw Utah made the JJJ trade and they may be trying to compete next year. So Lowry wouldn't be attainable. And the other thing is like Detroit doesn't have this surplus of picks like the Spurs and the OKC does.
But I ain't even gonna lie though, Drago. It ain't even have to just be Laurie. They could have called up Milwaukee and asked for KPJ. You could have called up a lot of teams and asked for a similar guard. Like you need somebody that can play make, not necessarily be a shooter or a bucket getter, but a playmaker. We all know what those guys are. Like, you need that. Like, they could have called up a lot of teams and said, I don't know, but you know,
what about the Bulls? They facilitated.
Was doing good last year, but I was never high on Karis LeVert like that. So I knew, like, nah, it's not gonna work. But
what do you think about Ayo?
I never really liked his game like that, but I could be biased to it, but I don't know. But I feel like even when you saw it wasn't working out with Ivy, like it wasn't working out with Ivy.
Yes, it was. That's not true.
Why would you dump Ivy and not get the Sumo?
I got a theory on this too.
Why would you dump Ivy and not get the Sumo or Kobe White?
I got a theory on this.
Because they facilitated the Sumo trade to Minnesota, if I'm not wrong.
So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why not get him to you?
So if you remember Real Talk, the year that they lost them 28 straight games, we came up here after the season and we were talking about the best young backcourts going into the 23-24 season. And I was really high on both Cade and Ivy becoming better. Well, when we get Ivy in the backcourt, it actually was working. He was actually improving. He was starting, I think. The season that he played,
shooting 40% from 3.
Yes, and he was improving, and it was working. Cade was getting better. Then this kid Anthony ends up breaking his leg. He ends up missing the rest of the season. That throws a monkey wrench in what they were doing. So now he's behind the 8 ball. Cade now jumps from here to here. So now we're in a different space with the Detroit Pistons. Now we're no longer building, right? Now we're no longer building. Now the timeline has increased. And now Ivy has to be now where Cade is. He isn't. And what they did was, with Cade jumping and being as good as he was, they were able to mask a lot of the real problems that they had. They were able to mask those with their style of play, with their defense, with Jalen Duren, who I think would be a great number 3 on a championship team, if I'm being honest with you. But with Ivy getting hurt, I think that set them back. But Cade being better, that made them
even then
to mask a lot of that stuff. So that's
even then though, chill. But even then though, chill, with Ivy getting hurt, like we still didn't, like, besides that 1 year that you're talking about, we still didn't see the progression of we can count on that going into the playoffs.
Yes,
so
we can.
They're not wrong for trading. Not really, because you never seen them in the playoffs. So they're not wrong for trading.
But I saw them building something though. That's not true, Drench. That's not true at all.
No, it didn't. No,
I think you have a
hard time. You have a hard time registering that when the timeline is sped up, the expectations are just different. Like when the timeline is sped up, it's like you'll admit that the timeline is sped up, but you don't understand the process of what happens when they speed up the timeline.
Well, that's why Ivy had to go.
I don't have time to experiment with Jaden Ivy. I don't have time to experiment.
It's the panel. Religion get built on cam. Where the chat throw smoke and the host go ham. You ain't never seen hoops out hit the raw. Every take got weight, every night we drop. This that barbershop. Courtside, worldwide tone. Welcome to the only show that really feel like numbers jumping like the score.